One thing you've said before that I really love is that there's a huge difference between a $0 million company and a $0 billion company. And maybe you could start with just explaining what you mean by that.
To me, when you set out on a journey, your mindset determines who you bring on board, how you approach it, what you set up, what deals you do, or which investors you get. In a zero revenue company, if you think 0 million, you're thinking a certain way to tactically achieve a small short-term goal. $0 billion, you start building from day one the company and the people you'll need to build the company. One of the things people seldom realize when they're starting up, you don't ever plan what you're going to do. You build a plan to plan. And who helps in that planning as you plan iteratively, as you evolve your strategy and your tactics? That team, which I call the kitchen cabinet of a company, is the essence of what your company will become. So one of my favorite tweets I like tweeting out is, a company becomes the people it hires, not the plan it makes. And that's grossly underappreciated.
And is the biggest difference between the 0 million and the $0 billion company the initial people you hire in your experience?
It is the initial people you hire, but also how you approach the initial tactics. My other great analogy, if you have a large vision, you're climbing Mount Everest, it's never a straight line. Nobody's climbed Everest in a straight line. You get to base camp, you get to camp 1, camp 2, camp 3, camp 4. If you get the right approach, you keep you're obstinate about your vision, which is Mount Everest, but you're flexible about tactics as things change, as you zig and zag, when you pivot. These are all things on the way to staying with the vision. Now, you can also do the same tactics without worrying about the vision. And my big beef with a lot of investors is they want revenue, they want to meet plan, as opposed to collect assets for this larger ascent to Mount Everest. So you can clearly set up base camp where you get revenue, stability, cash flow break even, the ability to raise more money in the wrong place. If your goal is to get to Everest, but you still get the revenue. You might have 20 million, 50 million, 100 million of revenue, but it doesn't help you get to Everest. Or you can take a little longer, a little harder, get to the base camp that lets you get the resources to keep the journey to your vision. There's a huge difference. In the team is the biggest difference, but there's also strategy differences. By the way, investors, in my view, matter a lot in this because you make short-term versus long-term trade-offs.
What % of investors in Silicon Valley do you think are good long-term company builders?
As I get in a lot of trouble for saying this.
Or among friends, it's
I think
okay.
90% of investors add no value. In my assessment, 70% of investors add negative value to a company. That means they're advising a company, and this is part of team building too for entrepreneurs. They're advising a company when they haven't earned the right to advise an entrepreneur. So some of the junior people here, when they ask me, hey, at this other firm, young people are going on boards, can I be on a board? I say, you haven't earned the right to advise an entrepreneur, so it's unfair to the entrepreneur. Yeah. Just because you got an MBA and joined a venture firm doesn't mean you're qualified to advise an entrepreneur.